is total. I believe you have been quite fortunate. No further thanks are necessary, Commander, but you are most welcome. It is my function and pleasure as a medical droid to help and heal human beings.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Hello everybody, welcome to Star Wars from the Bacta Tank. I am, of course, Michael Flores, your host, and in the studio with me, floating in the Bacta water, hello David.
Hello there.
All right, so today is that infamous day we've been speaking of, talking about, that is called Legends Wednesday. Are you ready for this, David? Are you ready for Legends Wednesday?
Oh, I've been anticipating this for a very long time because this is something we needed to cover.
Oh, yeah, and I feel like we need like a cool little jingle for it, though. We can't just say Legends Wednesday.
Yeah, that's true. We do need a jingle, but it's so hard to actually find a good jingle like that's better than right now Jabba Flow.
What about this? How about we just get excited with some Lando, right? Yeah, so Legends Wednesday, September, Dave, is going to be a beta test, okay? I cannot guarantee we will make it past September 15th. But it's a beta test. Can we do 5 days a week and not die?
Okay, I thought you said we're going to have 5 days and not get burnt out. I was going to say, like, we can do 5 days of Legend easily because there's so much going on.
Not 5 days of Legends. Come on, David. 5 days of Legends. 5 days of Star Wars. Only 1 day a week of Legends. Come on, now you're giving me too much work. Simmer down over there. But 5 days a week is what we are doing. We decided to do this for a lot of reasons, but number one, I get a lot of emails from listeners when we are away. And we took all of, what was it, July off?
Yes, July.
And people just immediately assume we quit the show. I'm like, we give you 4 to 8 shows a month, and just for the last 7 years.
Well, also Dave, on top of that, we just got off of like covering Celebration.
It doesn't matter to people. Come on, they're never happy. Are we ever happy with what Lucasfilm gives us? No. So why would listeners be any different?
True.
Yeah. So they wonder if we are quitting, but I'm like, you know what? Don't worry. 5 days a week. We're doing it for you. Yeah. Where are you guys? We're right here 5 days a week. That's where you can find us. I need my back to fix, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to do more, and that's why I wanted to do this, not just for the listeners. It's also, I have my own motives. We do this for free, and ad revenue doesn't pay the bills necessarily. It should, but it doesn't. So I figured we'd try to monetize the show a bit better. Full disclosure here, Dave, we are trying to nudge our thousands of listeners over to our Patreon page. Let's just be open and honest, Dave.
Yes.
We want their money. Open up your fucking wallets, or I'm going to put you in carbonite, or I'm going to slice you like the Mandalorian did when he pulled that guy through the blast door.
Nah, just dump him into the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah, something's going to happen. So we're going to do 3 days a week on our regular free feeds, and 2 over on our Patreon page. So go to patreon.com/RainmanDigital and pledge to our $5 podcast tier, and then you will get 5 days a week of Bacta Tank. And if this doesn't work, Dave, I'm just gonna Qui-Gon Jinn myself.
You're gonna join. Your spirit's gonna join the Force.
I'm just gonna Qui-Gon Jinn myself right through my gut and live on the air. I'm gonna do it. Yes, that is a threat. Maybe even a form of ransomware. Could that be considered ransomware? Would I have to like infect people with something to call it ransomware, or?
I think maybe.
I'm just gonna say it's ransomware. Sounds cool. All right. So today, as I mentioned, is Legends Wednesday. I think many of us who are old enough to remember the glory days of the Star Wars Expanded Universe, or the EU, remember it fondly. Probably due mostly to the nostalgia, but I feel most of those stories are just as important to us, Star Wars fans, as hardcore Star Wars fans, as even the movies.
Oh, definitely, because like there was probably hundreds of books out there that got released before the Great Purge.
Right. Is that what we're calling it? The Great Purge? The Dark Days.
The Dark Days.
Yeah. And we have said our piece about that. I mean, we don't have a problem with what happened with we get it. We understand why Disney had to retcon. And let's go back to what John Jackson Miller said, the Star Wars novelist. They didn't really retcon anything because it was never really canon. At least that's the official statement that all writers have to spout off at or during interviews.
Yeah.
His words were, what was it, Dave? They were not really ever canon to begin with because they were never officially sanctioned by anyone.
Lucas.
Lucas just allowed it to happen.
Yeah. Because that's why, you had people basically saying that the Thrawn trilogy technically isn't canon.
Oh,
because George Lucas he gave the blessing, but he never really backed it.
I'm just going to say it was back then. It was. It deserves to be. Now, as I said, Dave, Legends Wednesday. I'm going to drill into people's minds. Legends Wednesday. We do have a few guests in the studio today with us, which is something we will be doing more of, Dave. We're going to be bringing people in just so we can have a breather, because I'm already about to die of a heart attack over here. I'm talking like a million words a minute.
Well, dude, we're going to be needing extra help to man the ship for 5 days.
Yeah.
5 days of recording.
Well, and it's always going to be you and I on the show. We're always going to be in the Bacta water, but we are also going to welcome Lauren Alexander into the Bacta waters with us. Hello, Lauren. Oh, wait, your mic's not.
There we go.
There you go, Lauren.
The water's a little chilly.
Yeah. Wait, why did you?
That's his water.
Wait,
That's his water.
Wait, hold on. Am I showing? What's going on?
I just meant that was a cold welcome. Hey, welcome to the show. You don't get to talk.
All right, and I also have Greg. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Michael.
Am I sharing my back to water with Greg then?
No, I'm going back in my old tank that I had from 3 years ago. So
Wow.
the water's kind of murky, but
and it had all that red hair in it.
Fuck it,
That's pretty dirty, Greg. You're gonna go back in old water from 3 years ago?
Oh, I put it through a recycler, I put it through a Brita filter. It's
That's probably good enough.
I mean, that's probably as good as we'll get in America right about now. So
Oh, that's true.
All right. So each of you, the reason why I wanted to bring you into the show, and you will both be guest hosting a couple times a month. That's the plan. I want to get a general gauge on how much of a Star Wars freak you are, because I know you both are. Lauren, briefly in 30 seconds, when did Star Wars start for you?
When I was a kid, my older brother read a lot of the novels and then passed them down to me. And then I went to my first Star Wars convention when I was 7 years old.
What a nerd.
And it was AZ Star Wars Con.
Is that a real con?
Yeah. Well, not anymore. It was. I mean, it was 1997.
Yeah.
And I have this
You were 7 in 1997?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm 29 now. But yeah, that was it. That was a big thing that my dad, my brother, and I could all bond over when we didn't always have something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Greg, what about you?
I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan. So I played Shadows of the Empire. I read whatever books I get my hands on.
Get in that mic. That mic doesn't like you, does it?
No, it doesn't.
If you have to, lift up that pop filter.
All right, there we go.
Oh, look, now
there
there you are.
There we go.
Go ahead.
No, I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan since I was a kid. After I saw the original films, I tried to get my hands on whatever. And then working at a comic book shop, I could read pretty much any of the comics.
And spend your entire paycheck?
No, that was the great thing is I could sit there and read them while I worked.
You stole them?
No.
Yeah, that's the great thing. I just stole them all.
Well, no, I could check out books, check out.
Was it a library?
Yeah.
You have
for
a little
employees.
library card?
Yeah, I had to sign out what I took, and then if I don't bring it back in so many days, they're like, hey, Greg.
They send the police after you?
No, they just take it out of my paycheck.
Hey, Greg, you're fired.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, so we're just going to take your entire paycheck because you haven't returned shit.
All right, so all of us are nutcases in here, and we all have vast knowledge. I like to hear, Lauren, that you started in 1997 because the 90s for me, when it comes to the EU, was huge. It's my favorite era, not including, of course, when it all started and maybe even this new era. I definitely enjoy what we're getting for the most part.
Right.
But the 90s, I mean, it was the dark time. We call it the dark time because there was nothing there until 1991 when the Zahn trilogy was bestowed on us. And then suddenly, exactly, it changed everything. So
The
today,
whole book trilogy.
it really is, yeah. David, talk for me.
Oh, but I agree with Mike too. I mean, during that time, the books became like the main source for all of Star Wars.
Well, there's
No matter what.
Like, I remember as it went on, like when it got into the late '90s, and even like with the comic books in the back, they would tell you what stories and shit went in with whatever era, and it went from like being like, 2 pages, then to 3, and then to 4, and then it was 5.
And the beauties of that was like it made you actually have to go
But
find those.
there was a lot of shit though. Like, so you like, it was so, I don't want to say.
Oop.
Oh, now I gotta use the pop.
Now you gotta
filter.
use the filter.
Jesus. But it's like you look at it like, oh, where do I start? Oh, okay, if I want to read some Skywalker stuff, I can go here or here or here or here, and oh fuck, I got a lot of stuff to read for Skywalker.
And then,
like,
Yeah.
then about at the end of the 90s, that's when they start branching out and you see it, like different types of Star Wars story. One of my most favorite books that ever came out was one that was, I think it's Death Trooper.
oh yeah,
That Trooper
yeah.
was amazing
And-
because
and
it
what
was
a
something
weird-
different.
Yeah, what a weird thing.
Yeah.
What a weird idea.
Just make a zombie movie inside the Star Wars universe. And then they followed it up with Blood Harvest,
Yeah.
which was vampires, which I was like going, that for me, we called it the dark times because there was nothing there.
There was no
But
movies.
But in
There was no
all
movies,
honesty,
there was no cartoons.
in all honesty, you could say the 90s was probably the best time creatively for Star Wars
because you
like
had to be.
you had to
There
be
was
creative.
no movies. You had to be creative. You had to come up with a whole new world essentially based off of 3 movies. Now, people complain like, well, there's only how many movies are there? 8. There's 10 movies now, I think, technically.
Yeah.
There's only 10 movies for a franchise that's been around for 40 plus years. Well, in the 90s, when it was already around for over 20,
Well, yeah,
we
and
had
like,
3.
and
We had
but-
3 fucking movies. What franchise has 3 fucking movies that's relevant?
Yeah.
None.
And what's
Yeah.
funny with people complaining about that, and they're talking, oh, they retconned all this stuff, and now there's really nothing. Like, look, if you took all the shit they had back in the '90s and tried to like somehow make sense of that with the new movies, it
would
wouldn't
make
fucking
no
happen.
sense.
There-
Yeah.
You couldn't.
Especially when you throw in the comic books. Like you brought up the comic books, Greg. I remember working alongside you in the comic shop and
Stealing?
some of the Star Wars titles that came out are some of my favorite ones, but there is no way
There's no way
they
you'd
would
be-
ever fit into Star Wars today.
None of them would. I mean, like you could probably pick and choose parts of them, but in order to like kind of continue on the story in some cohesive manner without being like, all right, so here's this, but then also in this other part of the universe, there's going to be this going on, so we got to make sure we talk about that, and then this, and then that.
Well, not
Yeah.
not even
Fucking A.
not even in the other parts of the universe. The one thing, just as a teaser of what's to come, because one of my favorite characters
Simmer down over there.
that we want to talk about for Legends.
We
is
don't
gonna
want
come
you to
up.
bust your load all in the
Yes.
Bacta tank just yet, please.
But
we don't
they
want
went-
we don't want floaties yet.
They went into the past and the future. They basically decided, okay, in comic books, we're not only just going to actually just tell stories of like the current time frame. We're going to say thousands of years in the past and then 1,000 years into the future.
Or more.
Or
I mean, if
more.
you think about it with like Cade Skywalker, that was what, like 4,000 years
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something like after some other events. Like
And
that's
some
crazy.
Of
And
those
then he,
stories
and
are
what's, I don't remember if it was
classic.
Cade or it might have been this stream. Like he was also like a drug addict or something like
Yes.
that. Like
Yeah.
he was. I don't remember what he was addicted to, but I was just like,
Death sticks.
oh, it was death stick. Was it?
No,
Oh.
I don't remember.
I was just like, fuck. Like they're just already driving it home. You're a
He
Skywalker.
was
God
addicted to
damn
Twi'lek
it.
dancers.
Well,
That's
I
what-
mean, he did face off against Darth Talon.
Yeah, that's what I would be addicted to if I was a Star
Yeah,
Wars.
man.
I just give me some of those tentacle dancers, please. Yeah. All right, so let's get into today's topic. Today we're going to go around the studio and discuss our favorite Legends characters that have been retconned. We're going to ignore the ones that have now been brought back into canon that we'd like to see make a return. That's what we want to focus on. Legends characters, not just because we love them, but I want a logical reason as to how they can be brought back in and why they need to come back. Okay. Now, for those not in the know, because I know we have a lot of new Star Wars listeners, younger listeners that were born well after Lauren in 1997, that may not be completely.
I wasn't born in
Well,
1997.
I'm just saying well after 1997. You were 7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 years
When
old.
Lauren was born, she was only 7 years old. She quickly evolved to 7.
Oh, I'm dying. All right, so just for those that are not in the know, the expanded universe is pretty much everything that came out before Disney bought Lucasfilm, except the movies, and I believe there's one Dark Horse comic series, Son of Dathomir, which I believe was a story based on an unproduced script from Dave Filoni that was originally going to air on the Clone Wars series, but it had been canceled, and they were left there with an open-ended story, and they gave it over to Dark Horse before Marvel took control of Star Wars as well. So outside of that, that's all that came with Lucasfilm, because Disney, as we said at the beginning of the show, came in and they retconned the non-official official canon. So titles like Legends that you're going to hear us say, or the title Legends, it came out after Disney purchased Lucasfilm in hopes of not pissing off too many fans for retconning or officially denouncing the old EU. They put it all in a little tiny box, Dave, titled Legends.
Yes.
A box they promised. I still remember the YouTube video with Kathleen Kennedy and George Lucas sitting together, I believe in 2013, where they're talking about this little box. A box that they promised would not be completely forgotten. They would use it as a library of ideas when needed.
A Rolodex.
A Rolodex. And slowly, we have seen some of these characters or ideas, mythos, surface in various films. I think the biggest one, Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the biggest EU character they have brought in is Thrawn.
Thrawn, yes.
Yeah.
Thrawn is the biggest one. But I
And,
think
and leave it up to Dave Filoni to do God's work. I mean, never doubt Dave Filoni. That's why I'm psyched for The Mandalorian. Because
Trust the cowboy
he's-
hat, man.
Dude, yes. I mean, the power of the boots and the cowboy hat.
You
I
gotta
wish
have
he
faith
would-
in him.
I wish he would join us in the back to water. You know what I mean? Wear the little cowboy hat and his boots.
He might not
Wait, a
appreciate.
little cowboy hat or like a full-size
Well,
cowboy
he
hat?
can wear a 10-gallon hat.
Where's the cowboy hat going?
I don't know. Maybe if it's a 10-gallon hat, maybe in his penal area. Is that what you're trying to get out of me more?
Yeah.
You might not appreciate the
Definitely.
floaties in the tank.
All right. So the big pieces of EU or legend stories that kicked off this era that we're talking about, this era of greatness, was Timothy Zahn's books known as the Thrawn Trilogy,
Yeah.
which comprised of Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. And they took place roughly 5 years after Return of the Jedi. The first of this trilogy debuted in 1991, and from there, it took off. It was really the Renaissance outside of the movies. And to this day, this is why so many fans cry about the great retconning of 2013, because those books changed the way we look at Star Wars. It really cracked open ideas. It took things that Lucas had introduced or things that he had scrapped in various scripts and in first drafts, second drafts, and some of these creative minds, these novelists and comic book writers, just ran wild with these ideas. And I know Lucas, being the arrogant son of a bitch he is at times, even though I love him, he would scoff and laugh at some of these ideas in interviews. Do you remember in the 90s? He'd be like, yeah, so they brought Boba Fett back. What a dumb character.
Well,
I'm
even
like, what, George? What?
Well, even in present
Just wait
day,
till I put out Jar Jar Binks, fuckers.
even in present day, George still doesn't accept the Thrawn trilogy.
Well,
it's hilarious.
Him and Zahn had
and
a little...
Zahn, Timothy Zahn
Yeah.
are like constantly at odds with each other.
Honestly, we should produce like a celebrity death match between the two of them at this point, because I still think that...
George might eat him, so I don't know.
Wow.
Wow.
Is that a fat joke, Dave? Because I don't appreciate it.
Oh, Lucas the Hubbard.
Yeah, and I still remember walking into Kmart, of all places, in 1991. I think I was 11, maybe 12 years old in 1991, and I didn't know what I was in for. I just saw this big old, what are those things called when they had the in front of end caps?
Displays.
Yeah, like an end cap display.
Yeah, an end cap display. I walked right into Walmart with my mom, unsuspecting.
Wait, I thought it was Kmart.
Oh, Kmart, sorry. Yeah, Walmart wasn't even a thing yet, I think.
Yeah, Walmart was even
I went into Kmart, which I believe had an exclusive deal with the book company at this time, because I remember not being able to purchase it anywhere for the first 6 months. So I went in there. We were poor. We didn't have a lot of money. Didn't get it the first time. Then my mom said, I see you keep looking at it. Do you want it? I'm like, yes, please. And that changed my world. It made me start wanting to read more books. From there, I fed my addiction. And, I mean, the rest is history. That's what started it all. And I don't think people realize that Timothy Zahn is, before Dave Filoni became the lesser George Lucas, it was Timothy Zahn.
Yeah, it was on because like I even remember what you were talking about where Kmart did a special thing, and not only did they release the books, but then the toy line came out.
Oh my
and
God.
the brand new toy line came out where all of a sudden everything was based on like the books.
Yeah.
You had Dark Troopers, you had the figure of Thrawn himself, and it was like really cool to collect that stuff.
Well, because we didn't have anything. Okay, 91. When was the last movie? 83?
Yeah, 83 for episode 6.
Yeah. So that's a long time. Most franchises die, and yet that franchise would not die. It just resonated in a way that, again, it just revolutionized and changed the way movies were made as well, which we all know. Now that we're all on the same page, let's get into today's discussion. We have chosen 3 characters from Legends. Characters that have been retconned that we'd like to see be brought back into the series or into canon officially. And now what I want to do is have each of you give me one and remind me of their story briefly and why you'd like to see them brought back and why are they important to you. Let's just start with Lauren. Go ahead.
Oh, man. See, this is tough for me because the character that I want more than pretty much anything is Mara Jade Skywalker. I mean, honestly, like, I wanted to be her. Like, Princess Leia, she's great. She's cool. I admired her. She's a symbol of hope. She's amazing. But Mara, man, what a fucking badass.
Yeah.
Like, she goes from being a hand of the Emperor, you know, directly carrying out Palpatine's orders.
Which is such a cool concept.
Oh my God, yeah. And she has a purple lightsaber. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And she goes from that, you know, she gets assigned this mission to kill Luke Skywalker, and she hides in Jabba's palace as a dancer, and there's all these cool, like, weird things that you don't really expect to happen or see.
And connections.
Yeah. And then, you know, lo and behold, the story unfolds. She ends up defecting from the dark side. She comes to the Jedi side of things and ends up marrying Luke Skywalker, joining that family, becoming a Jedi Master, taking on Jaina and Anakin Solo
And yeah.
as her Padawans. She's completely integral to their whole family storyline where, you know, Han and Leia's kids, Jason and Jaina, the twins,
Right.
they both very force sensitive, very, very well trained, powerful, respected. Jason goes to the dark side, becomes a Sith, and kills Mara. And then Jaina has to kill her brother.
It's such a great story arc.
It's
Oh,
so
it was
good.
so awesome.
Yeah, it was such a good story arc. But as you listeners can get an understanding of this character and how she was so innervated within Star Wars mythos, within the expanded universe,
Yeah.
how can you bring a character like this in as is?
Right.
So
And-
it makes sense that they had to retcon, but in the heartbreak is that now that they have given us Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and we know where the story's going, do you think that there is room to still introduce a character that is essentially, at least at its heart, Mara Jade?
I think they could tell a story about Luke's time between, you know, parts of the saga with a character like that and have it end differently. She does die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She could fall in with other people and end up dying that way. who knows?
She-
I think they could pull a character like that in.
I was gonna say she could when Luke's Jedi temple burns.
Yeah.
They could have her die in there trying to
Trying to
save
stop.
her,
Save the students.
Yeah.
or something. So that's how you could. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of throw that in.
I mean, with the path that they took with the movies, do I think that that could happen like cinematically? No, not within like where the timeline is now. Could we go back into all of these years that Luke was gone and explore a story where he found love with someone who was maybe trying to kill him, and who was, maybe, I don't know, an assassin like she was, or
Yeah.
maybe she was working for a crime syndicate, like similar to like the Black Sun or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I feel like you could have a character like her. It could feel the same in spirit without being the same exact
Yeah.
pinpoints of each bit of the story.
And you know what? A good example of, or a good comparison, or a good piece of evidence that they could, in fact, do that, we can easily point to Thrawn.
Yeah.
Thrawn was also a part of he was introduced within the same storyline as Mara Jade.
They appeared in the same book, like from Timothy Zahn.
Yes, same storyline, same author, same trilogy, and yet look how seamless they've managed to just weave Thrawn's story throughout all eras of Star Wars. Except, of course, in the future, but I think we're going to get there soon. Honestly, I think Thrawn is going to be relevant when it comes to the future of Star Wars. If you've read other books leading up to the Rise of Skywalker, there's a lot of clues that the future of Star Wars in this time frame after or post Rise of Skywalker could in fact be revolving around Thrawn himself. So even if they don't go that way, and that's just simply fan speculation, look at all that we have received when it comes to Thrawn.
Yeah.
And how well he fits right into the story. So you're not wrong. I think they could possibly find a way to squeeze her in.
Do I think they're going to? No. But
Yeah, and I think that has to do a lot with licensing. There's a lot of people talking about that of late, that the biggest reason why we are not seeing as much old EU stuff being brought back in is because they have to pay a premium to Lucas in terms of licensing, and that's why they're more concerned with just creating new characters for the most part. All right, Dave, what is yours?
Mine, well, there's a lot of characters out there to choose from. So, but one, I think.
Okay, C-3PO.
Yeah. But I think that absolutely number one on my list has to be the greatest Dark Lord of them all, which is Exar Kun.
Son of a
Kun
bitch.
is, if Star Wars, we already get those hints that they're trying to bring back that mysticism, tell stories of the Force, and try to give some substance to the beginnings of Force, the Jedi and the Sith. You have to bring back Exar Kun, because Exar Kun is by far the greatest Dark Lord of them all.
the biggest and baddest.
The biggest and the baddest of them all. I mean, I can't even remember if it was in a game or in a book, but one of my favorite moments is when one other hero that is really fantastic is Kip Duran for me in the books.
The Jedi Academy trilogy.
Yeah, and Kip meets Exar Kun, and Exar Kun just tells him, "I am the greatest of all the Dark Lords. Go away."
Yeah.
And it's like,
Dude, to this day,
it still gives me chills thinking about it.
Dude, just talk about, we're such nerds, because I still remember reading that Jedi Academy book. I believe it was Dark Apprentice. Is that the second book in the Jedi Academy trilogy? I can't remember. But I still remember when he first revealed himself to Kip. And I'm like, oh shit, who is this? And then finally you find out who his name, the name who he is. And it goes right back to that Dark Horse comic that came out 2 years prior. I'm like, holy shit.
Yep. And that's the amazing thing about Exar Kun 2 is the fact that he was one of the characters that jumped platforms. He went from, during the Dark Times, he went from comic
They
book
used him all
to
over the place.
novel.
Yeah.
Even they made references, I believe they made references to him in video games.
Yes, they did. He was the 90s thread. His storyline was used in so many different iterations of Star Wars stories, comic books, video games, books. He was really interesting because his fall was something that now we hear a lot. We see a lot of those similar falls.
Yeah.
Oh, he was seduced by the dark side. But at that time, we only had really one example, and that was Vader.
And the thing about Kuhn's story was the fact that it was actually understandable, his fall.
Now, is it Kuhn or Kun?
I always said Exar Kuhn.
That's what I always said too, Kuhn.
Yeah,
But someone
Kuhn.
corrected me and said it's Kun.
All I can think of is like Exar Kun. Anime.
Go ahead, Greg. What?
Oh no, I was just doing.
Oh,
stupid.
we were being cute kawaii anime girls.
But like, and when you think about it, though, if they want to distance themselves from the Skywalker storyline, this is it.
Yeah.
On December, done. They told us no more going back to Skywalker.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
then go back into the past. And if it's true what they said, yes, I know that there's fans out there that basically say, "No, don't do it.
Don't try it."
Don't try it," because of the fact that they botched the end of Game of Thrones. But
Oh, come on.
here's the thing. I really do think the creators of Game of Thrones can do a fantastic story with Exar Kun.
Well, if they're writing
And
a script,
tell
yes.
Yeah.
tell a medieval type of story with Star Wars.
Yeah.
I
Dave,
mean-
I like your pick.
I have to agree with you too, because I mean they wouldn't have to rush anything to, okay, well, we have this much time left and we have to get to here, and this is where we've set up our characters to be as compared to a book. So
Yeah.
like they could write a script themselves.
They can write a script themselves and rewrite the story of Exar Kun. And honestly, going back into the past is probably one of the best things that they could do right now.
That would be the best thing possible, I think.
I don't know, I'd be a little bit of a baby, though, because when it comes to Exar Kun, I'd be like, you better get this right, you motherfuckers.
Oh, I swear
Well,
to
you're
God, I'm
dealing
going to write
with-
you a strongly worded letter.
You're dealing with the
tweet
origins.
You. I'm going to mention you. It's not going to be very nice.
You're dealing
I'm
with
gonna
the origins of the
write such an
Jedi
angry
and
blog
stuff.
post. I swear to God. I swear to God.
Why do you got to give me a lisp, dude? Come on. Just make fun of me. Don't make fun of my speech. Come on. All right, Greg, let's just go to you.
Fucker. My first pick, I need you guys to tell me whether or not he would be considered canon now or not,
Okay.
would be Darth Bane. Because he
Okay.
had one appearance.
He had one appearance
in Clone Wars.
Clone Wars.
He's canon.
You
He's
would consider
canon.
him canon?
Loosely, but definitely canon.
because
yeah.
like
Everything.
he runs into Yoda.
Well,
Yoda.
and that's his like one appearance. So like,
Technically, Exar Kun is, and I'll get
Okay.
into that, could be considered canon again, too.
So
but-
if anyone is confused about what it is or isn't
well, no,
canon,
I'm just saying because like his like story, his like the novels he's in are considered retcon, but his like canon appearance is just in Clone Wars.
we don't
Yeah,
have a
but-
backstory.
but
Yeah, we don't have
everything
a
in Clone
backstory.
Wars is canon. So yeah,
So-
we don't have a specific canon backstory, but he exists. He's canon.
Okay,
So
so-
the future is yet unwritten for him.
And Lauren, you were about to explain what canon is now. It's the movies, obviously,
yeah,
all
it's-
the movies, and Clone Wars. And
More than that. So it's
Star Wars Rebels,
so it's all of the cartoons starting with Clone Wars.
right?
So Clone Wars, Rebels, Resistance.
Mm-hmm.
It is all of the cinematic release movies.
Mhm.
It is all of the comics that have started releasing since Marvel began publishing them.
Yes.
All of the books that began getting published at that point in time as well.
And everything before that is non-existent.
Yes, and then any game stuff that's come out since that merger
Yeah.
is canon as well. But everything,
Everything
else,
after
like
2013.
yeah, so everything before that, like Knights of the Old Republic, everything else is not canon.
Okay, so then I'll go to my backup pick for that one.
Oh,
All right.
gee, I wonder who that would be then.
No, I'm saving that one. Shut up, Lauren.
It's
you know me too well. Shut up.
it's-
Would be Prince
Ali.
Prince Zizor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
From Shadows of the Empire, because I remember I loved playing this game, even though my computer really couldn't run it. So I would play it and then it would crash. Like, oh, I hope I saved before I fucking crashed. And I would get lucky sometimes, and other times like, oh, I gotta play this whole fucking part over again. But
Shadows of the Empire was on computer too.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was a
yeah.
game.
yeah,
I know it was on Nintendo 64. That's how I played it. But go ahead.
So, but I think it'd be cool to have Prince Zizor back, or Zizor, Zizel. He puts people to sleep and gives them a restful night.
Sounds a little rapey. Yeah, that you put
Is
it
it
that
rapey
way.
or is it just like nurturing? Does he
wow.
touch you? when he puts you to sleep.
He touches Mike apparently.
I don't know if I like Lauren's spin on rape.
No, if he just puts you to sleep but does not touch you, that's not rape. That's not fair.
If he invites you over for a sleepover, that's
It's definitely assault. Can we just agree on that?
Yeah, we just agree.
Yeah. If you're not
So-
consenting to the sleep.
he was in the game and the novel, and he basically was trying to find Skywalker before Vader. So this takes place following Empire Strikes Back, and he felt that if he could get and kill Skywalker, he would gain favor with the Emperor over Vader. And he was
Everybody
already,
wants that Palpatine booty.
and he's already
Oh, yeah.
already a badass because he was the head of the Black Sun crime syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
So
which has been brought back into canon.
I mean,
Shit.
Crazy.
so I
love
mean,
it.
you could bring him back in some capacity. You know, you could do something in between. You could do like a little mini TV series between Empire and Return.
The funny part
Solo 2.
is Solo 2.
Well, that's what I mean.
I
It's
always
like you
thought
could-
it was Solo 2 that he was. Oh, we're gonna get.
They were
Prince
definitely
Zizor
gonna.
again.
That whole series was designed to get into the crime syndicates, and
Yeah.
all the fucking like Last Jedi babies, had to fucking moan and cry and
But
protest.
I hope after Rise of Skywalker ends, they go back and maybe
agreed.
do a second Solo movie, because I think it'd be badass to fucking have him in it in some capacity, like bring him back, maybe change the story a little bit, but have him there because he was a badass character. to begin with.
Honestly, I feel like so far out of all the characters mentioned, he's the one that seems the most, I want to say the easiest
The
to
most
bring,
likely.
the most likely and easiest just to bring right in. And that whole Darth Maul storyline they had set up with, was it not Red? Is it Red Sun? Is that his syndicate that him and Kira were working
Oh
on?
God.
That was.
No, it
What was the name of the faction?
Well, let me Google it real fast so we don't look like Star Wars losers. Hold on one second.
We're
you guys
allowed to
talk.
forget things sometimes. But there's so many cool characters that exist within like the smuggling of the galaxy and
Yeah.
like the frontier out there. One of the best new canon characters that has come out recently, I think, is Dr. Afra.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I
She's
love
Afra's
her.
there.
amazing.
I mean,
She
Afra's
is by far
amazing,
the
and
best
then
new-
Crimson Dawn was
Crimson
the
Dawn.
Crimson
There you
Dawn, yeah.
But also, not only just Afra, but also, I mean, me and Mike have talked about him just recently because he's taken a huge.
Be careful, Dave. These shows are being recorded out of order now.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay, but one of the new characters they introduced in the comics was Bylert Valance. Valance was a legend character
In Target Vader.
in Target
Yeah.
Vader, and I'm like, going, they reintroduced him, but gave him something even more,
He's
kind
so
of like a
fucking
more
cool, dude.
personality than what he had back in the '80s. So, I honestly think with
These-
their movement towards like the smuggling side and the bounty hunters,
Yeah.
and a lot of the characters they've been introducing, like you mentioned, Afra, all of them are non-force users.
Yeah.
I love the droids in Afra.
Yeah,
Oh
they,
my
they
God.
were amazing. They are
BT1?
amazing.
Dude, we just did an Afro show that did come out, technically. And, I mean, we just go in depth about those two little droids. I mean, I feel like they're two of the most intelligently written characters in Star Wars to date. There's something so clever about them, unaware of the world they're in, their own little bubble. It's almost as if they have their own little comic strip within a comic.
Yeah, I just like
It's
when they
fantastic.
like in the first graphic novel where they go and they kill like the crime syndicate representative,
Yes.
and he's like, no, we can't light him on fire because then it won't look natural.
Yeah.
No, spontaneous human combustion doesn't exist. Or like, I'm too sophisticated for running. Like, I'm more for like chess and peeling flesh off of humans. I'm like,
It's very dark, but
Like,
I
they're
love it.
fucking
I'm
hilarious.
surprised Disney co-signed on that. Honestly, some of the things they do and say. So, all right, Greg, anything else you want to add to that Legends?
no, I think I hope they make a Solo too so that they can introduce him as well.
Yeah, it would work.
Because you could
very
have Crimson
smoothly.
Dawn versus, go against the Black Sun. I mean, it'd
Yeah.
be fucking
You
awesome.
bring that in and like Dash.
And you could bring Maul in because at the end of Solo,
Oh my God, you guys are turning me on right now. Dash Rendar, Maul. Jesus Christ, I can't take it.
Double-bladed lightsaber. I mean,
would-
it's red.
I'd
The
be
Bacta water's
so-
no longer chilly, huh, Lauren?
No, it is not. It is heating up. I would kill to see Dash Rendar in a Solo 2. Like, that would be so cool.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah, it would. It'd be
Mike's like,
fantastic.
Mike, do you need a minute? Do you want to? should we go to break so you can
I
settle
believe
down
you
a bit?
gave him the vapors.
It just frustrates me because a lot of people don't realize this. I've done so much studying into Solo because I just loved that movie. That movie was a dream come true for EU babies. Like
I just
me.
watched it again, and I still love it. Like,
There is
Yeah.
just so many
So good.
things given to us that the fans have been wanting. It to me, it's not the best Star Wars movie we've gotten, but it's the funnest Star Wars film, and I feel like it's the most Star Wars feeling movie we have received in this new era. It feels like it was made as a love letter to the fans.
I'm still trying to find like the Sabacc game
Yeah.
that they
I
put
couldn't
out.
find it at Galaxy's Edge. It was sold out when
But
I
they,
went.
Yeah.
but what I saw, I'll make this quick. What I saw for like the Disneyland, the Star Wars hotel in Disney World, what they showed like as like concept art for like parts of the ship. There's a part that looked like a bar or casino, and people were playing Sabacc.
Yeah.
And I was like, I will fucking save to stay there because it's only two days and 2 nights. Because they make it seem like a cruise.
3 days, 2 nights.
Oh, 3 days, 2 nights.
It's an experience.
Yeah, and so I'm looking, I'm like, oh, I would just fucking play Sabacc half the time, like sitting there, like start going, like,
And I have a Twi'lek dancer on my
Yeah.
lap while I play.
Oh my
Or-
God.
I'll start fucking going. I'll go like Lando on. I'm just like, have you ever heard of this? I'm a kind of an expert in that. Yeah. So
And then we can do one of those sleep things that Lauren was talking about with
Yeah.
it.
mhm.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Prince
Yes.
Prince Zaisel will come in.
Those cabins fit. They sleep a few people in there. They can fit quite a few people in. So if they
Lauren's done her
hire
homework on rape, apparently. You could fit a lot. You could put a lot of people asleep and fit a lot of them in one room.
And listen, I don't
A
have
lot
to
of them.
touch them. Just
Yeah.
don't touch them.
Look, we,
just wanna look at
let's
them
go
when
ahead
they
and start
sleep. Watch 'em
our own
sleep.
Star Wars crime syndicate, the Crimson Sun, and then we'll go on this experience. We'll knock people out while I beat them at Sabacc, take them back to their cabin, and then rob them.
Who's that serial
Oh my
killer
God.
that watched people sleep? It was the Night Stalker. Yeah, we have our own Night Stalker. That's your new nickname, Lauren.
And on the show today, we have Night Stalker. Say
Oh,
hello.
fuck, that sounds cool. Can I keep that? I want that.
No, you can keep that. Go ahead.
That's
That
probably the
actually
better
does
nickname
sound
that's
good.
come out of like these fucking shows. So
All right, so let's move on. We're falling behind here. Okay, so for me, it's a repeat, but it's what I have. It's Exar Kun. I love everything about this character. When he was first introduced, I believe his first official appearance into Star Wars Expanded Universe canon was in the Dark Horse comic series Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that comic book, I believe it was Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, the Sith War, and then again in Tales of the Jedi, Dark Lords of the Sith. And he was the character that really changed my perception of the Jedi and what we knew of them. Yes, we heard of this Dark Lord of the Sith, but you got to remember, we didn't have anything after those movies. So
Yeah.
all of this was so fresh and so unique, and to see the true dark side of the Force and what it could be and how dark it is and evil and twisted and manipulative and seducting, it's just fantastic. And they did this all in a Dark Horse comic book run. I believe, I want to say, started in 1993. And then his character, as you mentioned, Dave, bled into various iterations of Star Wars because he instantly became a fan favorite.
He became a fan favorite. He became an anti-hero.
Yeah,
Because
well,
a lot of people were like going,
he had a tragic
tragic
story as
story.
well, and a lot of people kind of remember him now as just simply the Sith Lord, but he got tricked into becoming part of the dark side.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, he was trying to figure out more information in order to fight the Sith, and he was curious, and then a dark spirit dropped a cave on him, and it was kind of twisted for a young kid. I was 11 reading this comic book. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy's spine is sticking out of his back, and he's dying, and he's calling out to the Force, and refused to listen to him, the light side, because he was going against his master's.
he was going against his master's wishes.
Yeah,
and
so
wasn't
the
going
dark
against it.
side replaced it, spoke to him, and said, hey, as long as you feed and reach out with your anger, I will save your life. I will rebuild your body. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
that
it-
is twisted.
And in
Yeah.
that moment of desperation, really, how different is he from anyone else?
And that's what
Yeah.
that's what made it really a compelling story and
Yeah.
a difference between Vader and him. Because at that time, Vader was considered, Darth Vader's the greatest
Right.
Dark Lord of them all. But his story is about tragedy through choices.
Mm-hmm.
Exar Kun was forced into it because I'm dying.
Exactly. It's such a great.
What am I gonna choose?
It's an allegory in a lot of ways for the age old make a deal with the devil.
yeah.
Hey, I can allow you to live again. I can let you live, but your soul will belong to me. I mean, it's such a great story and a very
It
dark
is.
story. Now, there is a little bit of side information here that I have written down and a light of hope. Because according to Star Wars Insider 26, straight from the horse's mouth, lists Kuhn's rise to Dark Lord of the Sith is or could be considered canon once again. And comments from the set decorator when he was writing his concept art for Solo, a Star Wars story, Dryden Voss's desk is said to be made of stone taken from Exar Kun's temple.
Yes.
Now, we know that many of those source books, they're not technically canon, but a lot of Star Wars fans, including Hidalgo, the Lucasfilm Story Group leader himself, uses that, and he says, hey, it's in this book, it's in the design of these movies, it's canon.
Yeah, I actually remember in one of the Star Wars shows when they have at the very end of each Star Wars shows, they always have the question for Pablo, because Pablo Hidalgo is like the archivist of all Star Wars. Someone actually asked him on the show, does Exar Kun exist? And he brought up that exact same thing.
Yeah, dude.
And
hey,
he said, if it's in a book, it exists.
The source guides are considered official.
They are.
And if they're saying that a part of his desk was made from Exar Kun's temple, then Exar Kun exists.
Yes.
So that's why I love Star Wars, dude, because Kasdan and Ron Howard, including those fuckers, Christopher Miller and Phil Lord, they put a lot of heart into Solo, even before they got fired. They did, and they were trying to create something. And Ron Howard took over and did a great job. They were trying to create something that the fans could all circle around and enjoy a bit of old-fashioned Star Wars, because that whole entire movie is littered with moments like this.
Oh yeah, that's what makes like when Greg brought up Darth Bane. That's what makes those moments really special. Is like kind of like when the creators actually acknowledge, hey, there is a little bit of a lore behind this.
Yeah.
And like I remember exactly when Darth Bane got referenced in Clone Wars, and it was awesome.
Oh yeah,
because
no,
especially with the fact that Darth Bane was voiced by Mark Hamill.
Oh yeah.
I was laughing, my
and that's
head
why I
off.
wanted to bring him up, because like they could go back and do old stuff with like the Jedi versus
the Jedi versus the Sith, or like, and then like little nods to like the mythos and the lore like that, without actually coming out and saying,
Right.
"Hey, here's this character."
Well, because
they
that's-
gotta leave it open.
That's something Solo did. Again, it's the first movie that we received that felt like they were fulfilling their promise, because they had said in 2013 when Disney took over that we were going to get a Marvel-esque type of Star Wars world. Everything was going to be connected, spin-offs, characters bleeding over, crossovers, and we didn't get that. And finally Solo did it with Darth Maul, with Solo, with Lando, with little bits of various other characters. If you knew what you were looking for, you were like, oh, I know who that is. And that was the start of a true crossover film.
And what's really shitty with that is that the fucking toxic part of the fan base is like just fucking lambasted it.
They were so
And
angry
then
with Last
it's
Jedi that
just
they didn't even give it a chance.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
it's like, you guys, like, what do you guys want? Then to be like, hey guys, look, the legend stuff is all back in canon, so now everything's kind of fucked up, but hey, you got it back, right? So you happy? Oh, you're not happy now because it doesn't make sense? Awesome. Go back to your basement.
All right, so we are running out of time, so we're going to do one more each. Lauren, give me one more Legends character.
I think I had a hard time with this, but actually let Greg go first, because what he doesn't pick, I'll pick.
Okay. Greg, go first.
So my pick, I was going to wait for this to be last, but since we're doing one more, I picked Darth Revan.
Well, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Fuck you guys. Wouldn't. Like, his book is fucking awesome, and like his story is fucking awesome. Like, he was first trained as a Jedi. He took part of the Mandalorian Wars. He lived during the same time period as like fucking Darth Nihilus, and then he becomes a Sith Lord, and then he he's the closest thing we'll get to what people are calling the gray Jedi, like the in between,
Right.
Which are
Yeah.
called the Jedi. If you actually read the fucking old comics,
Don't flex your knowledge on us.
Boy,
You're flexing.
I got
Sorry.
into a near relationship ending argument about Grey Jedi during San Diego Comic-Con while waiting for the results of a Star Wars trivia night at a bar.
Wow. That's a crazy life.
so in the game, there's like the Revenants, like where it's like it's his own like sect of Force users, and like Revan's just a fucking badass because like in the book, there's like at a point where he just like taps into that dark side, he starts remembering,
Yeah.
and then he just goes fucking full badass mode.
All right,
then
and
plus, like,
how do you feel like they can bring him back in?
I feel like they could. I feel like if they do like an Old Republic like show, they can bring it back in because he hasn't really been mentioned yet or referenced in like any of the current canon.
Yeah.
Or I
So-
can help you there, Greg. I mean, Mike, imagine a series that starts with Exar Kun, second season, continues the origin of the Sith and the Jedi, jumps to Darth Revan, and then tells his story.
Oh,
of
they
the
could, and they
Jedi
could tie.
and
They
the-
could tie. I mean,
and then it
Well,
ties
yeah,
back to the
because-
Skywalker storyline.
I was gonna say they could tie in with the Mandalorian, but they take place at different time periods because they could still bring up the Mandalorian Wars.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Mandalorian
And then like
Wars.
in the Mandalorian, they can reference the wars, and like there you have their connection. And
Yeah. But I think it would be so easy to do something for Darth Revan. I
It
mean,
is.
and his story, even like outside of books, outside of that, and just sticking with like Knights of the Old Republic, that storyline is so cool. You start out, you don't know who you are, you can't remember your life before, you can't remember anything about yourself really, and you've got characters like Bastila Shan, who's like trying to get all this info from you, but she already knows. She knows all along, that sneaky bitch. And then, as time goes on, you're learning about this Sith apprentice, Revan, and you're learning about, what a terrible villain this guy is. And then, fast forward towards the end of the game, you find out, oh my God, I'm Revan. And
That's awesome.
you get to make these choices throughout the game, whether you want to lean towards the dark side or lean towards the light side of the Force. And at the end of it, it is still, no matter what, a bit of a story of redemption. But you can still decide to go dark side and make some dark side choices and stuff. But it's still, he ends up having this weird character transformation, and it just totally throws his I don't know, his ideas and his thoughts about his life like on its head, because he's like,
essentially
what the fuck?
he's two people in
Yeah.
one. Like
Yeah.
And I
you
thought
know.
the smart writing during that game was the fact that they showed Darth Revan's choices, and you kind of actually do feel for him. You basically go, yeah, I would make that choice. Oh, no, that's an understandable choice.
Yeah.
And, like, the thing I really appreciated was in that game was, like, you get to the point where you have the test, and the whole time, the first time I took it, I thought I was answering all light side. And then all of a sudden at the very end, oh, no, you got a dark side point.
Yeah. Turns out it's not so black and white.
It's not so black and white. And there's something special about that character, I think, with especially fans, Star Wars
can,
fans.
can
in the
I
90s.
guess? Can I just surmise that Revan was on all of your lists? All three of you?
Actually, no, because I knew someone was going to take him.
Oh, okay.
That's why I handed it over
Yeah.
to Greg, because I knew he was gonna pick him. So I was like, "You take the
I was
lead."
gonna pick
Plus,
him
I
too,
know-
but I knew someone
I know
would.
Greg. I know Greg, and I know
was
that
just really
that's
excited.
his
I was
favorite
really excited to
character.
finally be like Revan.
All right.
Follow-up?
Anything else you want to add, Greg, to that?
No, Revan's just a badass.
Okay, Lauren.
So mine's gonna be totally shallow and not based on anything other than like, oh my God, she looks cool, and I like that period of time. But Darth Talon, and it's kind of a
Okay.
twifer because I'd like to see Cade Skywalker as well.
Thank you.
I liked, yeah, you know what? Like I want to see a like Twi'lek Sith. I want to see that on screen. That would be super cool. I want to see that moving around in front of me. But
Yeah, you
part
do.
of I do. But part of what I really liked about everything that Darth Talon was in is her whole situation of her own, and then her interactions with Cade Skywalker and his story.
Yeah.
So he's supposedly the last scion of Darth Vader's like bloodline, and he's the last Skywalker that's important.
And yes, Mike, he was taking death sticks.
Yeah, and yes, he was taking death sticks.
Gangsta.
And then so you've got him, and he's got these crazy powers. Like, he has this healing power that he can also turn back around and reverse healing. There's a point where he is face to face with Darth Talon and her master. I can't remember the Sith Lord at that time. I can't remember his name right now. But he ends up reopening all of Darth Talon's wounds.
That was so messed up.
Yeah, like, what? Not only can you like fast heal yourself like a fucking X-Man, but you can reverse it on someone else and reopen their wounds. That's crazy. And she's like born and bred Sith.
Yeah.
She was trained from like the time she was born, brought up in a Sith temple, like just totally opposite spectrums there.
We need this to be brought back because
Well, it's the opposite of Exar Kun because you can go to the future.
Yeah.
At that point, okay, no more Skywalkers. We're not connected to the original series. Okay, let's go into the future.
Yeah.
Just go into the past or go into the future. You choose.
yeah, I feel like that's the biggest thing we're missing from this new era. As I've said time and time again, Dave, I love what we're getting, especially with the books and comic books. I feel like they're stronger than they've ever been. The ongoing titles, Aphra, Star Wars, the Vader series, and the books are great. But what we're missing is the dark, the mythology, the deep lore of the Sith, and the ancient side of Star Wars. We just don't have that. And I'm hoping, we're 2019, how many years has gone by now since Lucasfilm has been bought?
Yeah.
About 7 years? I mean, come on. It's time to take us there. Let's do it.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so my last one, because I only have time for one more. How many have you done, Dave? One?
I've only done one.
Okay, I'll do one, then you can do one.
Okay.
All right, Dash Rendar. And someone mentioned him already.
All of us actually have.
Okay. I love that character. He was first introduced in the Nintendo 64 video game Shadows of the Empire. I loved everything about his storyline. He became an instant fan favorite for a lot of reasons. And not only is he everything that a 13, 14-year-old boy wants to be when he grows up, just a scoundrel, the Solo type of character, cool, suave, has a way with the ladies, the whole scoundrel type. But his story was very in-depth, and the way the Nintendo 64 game brought him into the fold, I loved it. You and I have already talked about this time and time again,
Oh, yeah,
Dave.
because of that Rebels episode when they introduced his freaking ship.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about Shadows of the Empire in itself. The whole marketing gimmick behind it, I think, is fucking genius and way ahead of its time. I mean, the first real piece of transmedia, and the whole idea that Lucas said, hey, let's market a movie, but it's not a movie, but we're going to treat it like a movie. We're going to have all the tie-in materials, all the tie-in marketing, toys, comics, books, lunch boxes, but no movie. Let's do it as if it was a movie. And they would continue the storyline. It's one of the few expanded universe titles that Lucas actually gave his official stamp of approval. Yes, he allowed people to license things, and he was like, yes, everyone play nice together while I make money. But Shadows of the Empire was his baby as well.
Yeah, it was.
And you can tell because it just oozed Star Wars from every aspect. And it has stuck with me to this day. I still have a Nintendo 64 only so I can put in Shadows of the Empire once in a while, and I play it once a year.
That's adorable.
It's awesome. Yeah, I do it on the anniversary when I bought it. No, not really. But I do play once a year. I love it, and I feel like they could easily bring him back into the fold. He isn't one of those characters that are so heavily connected to Star Wars lore that it'd be difficult. You can easily bring him in and still be essentially the same character. You don't have to remove his soul because he's too deeply embedded in the old EU. This is someone that I feel like would just fit in seamlessly, much like Valance.
Yes.
Is it Valance? I forgot
Valance.
his name. Yeah, Valance. And side info here again, and possibly a light of hope. Dash Rendar was first mentioned in Star Wars canon again, official Star Wars canon in 2018. Journal book, get this, yet again, the fan favorite Solo, A Star Wars Story, Tales from Vandor. So he is in canon. He was mentioned. That's an actual book. So there is hope that we can get him again
Hopefully.
someday. Yeah. All right, Dave, give me your final one and
My
keep
final
it brief.
one? Okay, I'm going to keep it brief, but this one's a bit of a broad one. It's not a character because one of the things.
planet.
No. It's a one thing that I think Star Wars desperately needs, especially if you're going into new territory. And that is, I want to see them desperately introduce the Yuzan Vong. The Yuzan Vong was the answer to the bigger, badder evil that's out there.
You know what?
Yeah.
You stumped me. I don't remember that.
The Yuzan Vong was the race that was from the Outer Rims.
Oh, okay, yes.
And they came in. They were basically the book's answer for like orcs in the Star Wars universe.
Okay.
And they were led. They came to the main. They invaded the system after Thrawn came back from the Outer Rim, and like suddenly you started hearing like little chatter in the books about this big gigantic army that was just outside of the Outer Rims and coming in, and it was the Yuzan Vong. And then when they came in, they destroyed everybody. It led to Jason actually falling because they end up kidnapping Jason, torturing him, and basically forcing him to go into the dark side because, hey, that's what we do. We're the Yuzan Vong. We're the ultimate evil.
Yeah.
We're beyond basically the Sith.
Now, could they seamlessly reintroduce the Tu Wong Fu, whatever you were calling him?
Absolutely. Because here's the thing. They've been hinting at basically venturing out into the Outer Rims. What is the one thing
I like to
that
venture out
basically
within the Outer Rim sometimes.
Dave Filoni has... Where did Dave Filoni send Ezra and Thrawn?
Yeah, that's true.
He sent them out to the Outer Rim.
Yeah,
And
Yep.
and Filoni basically said, "Oh yeah,
the unknown region.
the unknown
Yeah.
region."
Yeah.
And then we know that basically people venture out that way, but nothing comes back.
Yeah.
So
God, there's so much out there that we
I
can-
honestly feel that bringing and plus this is something that I think Star Wars desperately needs because like you have to actually bring in something fresh villain wise. It can't always be the Rebel Alliance versus the Empire because that will get stale.
Yeah.
After a while, the war has to end.
And
Plain
that's
and
why,
simple.
Dave, how many times do we always say this? Like, we are one of those fans. We are those fans that say, listen, we love what we've had over in the past, and we love what we're getting now. But I understand when Kathleen Kennedy says it's time to move on.
Yeah.
There's so much more
yeah.
to Star Wars than just lightsabers and Skywalkers.
And imagine
Yeah.
imagine the epic reveal because everyone is waiting for Thrawn to come back. And I agree, Thrawn should come back. He's from the unknown region. He comes back.
His story's open-ended. He's going to come back.
He's going to come
Yeah.
back. But however, everyone thinks that he's the ultimate evil when in the book it was hinted that the Yuzan Vong were much more
Yeah.
scarier than Thrawn, and in actuality Thrawn was actually leaving the Outer Rim to get away from them.
But that's a topic for another time as well, because I want to actually put together a show about Thrawn, villain or anti-hero, because I'm leaning that he's an anti-hero.
No,
Oh,
he's an
yeah.
anti-hero.
Because
the
he's
things he had to go through with like how I don't know how I guess racist is the
Yes,
easiest way to put
yeah.
it. The Empire was, and despite all of that, he still made his way up in the ranks.
Yeah.
Like he's not true villain. I don't think. He's anti-hero.
yeah.
He had to go through some shit.
Yeah, so we'll probably put together a show about that because I feel like we can talk about that for a good 2 hours.
Oh, easily.
I just got to read this last Thrawn book and I'll be caught up. So, all right, well, let me get in my mic because I'm not talking in my microphone. That concludes today's discussion. I'm hoping everyone's enjoying these 5-day-a-week shows and our very first official Legends Wednesday. I want to thank you, Lauren, for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Greg.
It's good to be back.
And David, thank you.
Thank you, and may the force be with us.